All right. Good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. What a move. What a move. What a day yesterday. We finally got some life. Even if it's to the downside, that's all right. What's up, everyone? Happy Friday. Welcome back. Welcome, welcome, welcome. That QQQ gap fill. What a play. What a move. Definitely reminded me yesterday of, the selectiveness that's required. That was a, play that we really planned out, and we knew it was an opportunistic area, and there it was. Nice downside continuation today, but we are holding this key NASDAQ 700, 709 area. So I'm watching that this morning to see how we react. But yeah, nice day yesterday. Hope you guys had a nice little trade to the downside as well. If you caught something there, well done. Finally, some good follow through. And today, maybe the pop and fade. There is definitely the caution of a pre-market gap down into some demand, creating that sort of morning relief. But then where can we find that new fade level? That's sort of what I want to be looking for today. So let's get started. We got a lot to go over this morning. I was running a little late because there were so many new charts to look over and new things to be watching. So we got a lot to talk about. Press that like button, subscribe to the channel. We by far appreciate that, man. Thanks for supporting the stream. And let's jump right into it. So first of all, let's go to that QQQ. Yesterday, we were talking about the QQQ gap to fill below. Underneath that 616.89 into that 613 area. We were talking about this gap area. Really, the gap closed. Really, it was right around here. The gap truly closed right around the close of this day, 609.74. But yesterday, one of our game plans was to look for that 618 rejection. And that is exactly what we traded yesterday. So yesterday right here, between 616.89 and the 618 PDL, you had just an awesome morning fade of that level. Nice downside. Even the pop and fade at that level again. So what a giving level that was, 618 on the QQQ. So that was really good. Very textbook trade. And now we are into this level, but let's just let's go into our... Who's calling me right now? I have no idea. Let's just jump into our normal sequence. So let's go to the look at the hourly chart. We can see we had our NTZs yesterday, which was here, right, and here. And we talked about how once we get outside of these channeling levels, we see opportunity. And if this does not show it to you again, then I don't know what will, right? You can see sideways consolidation. Once we broke it, nice downside. Sideways consolidation. Once we broke it, nice downside here, nice downside here, right? So let's continue to really focus on the markets. And this is showing it's so important lately. Only trading where the opportunistic moves are outside of channels and waiting for the moves outside of weekly lows and weekly highs, right? Before yesterday, we had triple bottom lows, intraday, like the weekly lows here, triple bottom Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? So we had a channel of the week. Once we broke that low of the week, look at the moves that came in, right? And it just showcases why I talk about not trading inside these channels and just simply waiting for these moves. And I need to do better at that myself. I am not saying I am perfect, but that is what I try to at least teach you guys. These trades in here do not need to be taken. You do not need to trade these days. Seriously. Long term, if you want to try to be more selective, these are the days you stay away from. And a day like yesterday that's breaking the weekly lows, that's entering a gap fill, you trade on those days and those days only, where those opportunistic areas are, you're going to be better off long term. So, it's always a battle to try to get better at that mindset. But that, again, sort of reiterates and reinvigorates that idea and makes me very excited to continue to, focus on that. So, anyways, this morning, we are moving lower, and we're moving lower into some major demand lows on the NASDAQ futures. So you have this area here, and I think the major area is this 709.25 to around 804.75. That's sort of the zone that I would be watching today. Between 709 and 804, that's the area that I'd be paying attention to. So let's go ahead and go to the hourly chart, because you'll be able to see that a little bit better here. So here on the hourly chart, let me get more time. Hold on. Bear with me. 30-day. Zoom out. So right here. So here on the hourly chart, you can see we have these lows here. We have these lows here. This was that major wick low from Friday of last week that popped the market higher, right? We are sitting right at that level as we speak. And what we actually did this morning was we swept that level. So right here, you can see this morning, we had a drop below that 709, created a pretty volatile downside move, and then we have reclaimed it right here, right? So you can see we got right back above that 709 level. So for me, this is going to be a very, very important level to start the day. 24,709, that is the exact low of this 4-hour candle right here. Do we break below that, or do we get above it, right? Do we break below that level, or do we hold above it today? My YouTube's not working. It looks fine on my end. YouTube good, guys? Looks good on my end. 24,709. This 4-hour low is the most important low, I believe, of right now intraday. Right? Do we hold that? Do we break that? Right here. If we start to fail below this today and we see rejections under 709, then this gap fill can continue. Really. It absolutely can. If you do not hold back above this 4-hour low, I think you can see our daily 100 SMA, our 24,400 on the NASDAQ futures. I truly believe you can see that. That is here, that is here, that is here. That is your 100 SMA. That is very possible. How do you get there? You got to stay under this 4-hour low. If you reclaim that low, which you're doing right now, you can see it's attempting to. It's very sketchy still, but it's attempting to. If it holds above that 24,709, then I would assume that you would probably see some type of relief to the upside after sweeping that low this morning. Now, the question is, where is the pop and fade? Where is that fading level? Where do we look to reshort this if we do get a morning bounce? It looks like to me this 50 SMA area, right around this 25,160, is the spot that I would be watching to start. I would say anywhere between that and possibly this 4-hour high back here, right around that 25,026. But for me, I'm looking back towards this daily 50 and back towards some of these rejections that we see here in the overnight session. See this right here? 25,160 and this daily 50. That's going to be the area that I watch to see if that turns into a potential fading area. So back up into the 50. Do we turn that into a lower high? And do we fade that again? That's going to be something I pay attention to for the pop and fade. If we get that pop and fade environment, that would be the spot to look for. I would be cautious of shorting into this demand low. This is definitely an important level. If we look at the 4-hour chart, you can see major 4-hour lows, major 4-hour lows, and this area could get a little bit tricky today. And if you're chasing shorts after a gap down, this does, market does a great job at taking you out of that trade. All right, so careful down here. Definitely some demand. We'll also reiterate that on the Qs and the SPY. You'll see we're at a very big spot on those as well. If you hold this low, I think you get relief bounce towards the daily 50 SMA, towards 25,160. You fail under this 24,709 today, you turn this low into rejections. I think you're heading right here, 24,400. Okay? That's my read for now. S&P 500, very similar here. S&P 500, let me go to the hourly chart, and you're going to see this is an important area on the S&P 500, right around 6,700. So right here, if you look at the hourly on the S&P, you're going to be seeing multiple areas of support here. Look, right here, 6690, 6700. 6690, 6700, a little bit right there, definitely a bounce right there, and you can see that is exactly where we're at right now. So do we hold 6690, 6700 right here on the S&P this morning? Right here and right here. If we hold that, I think it is possible that you get a little relief bounce to start the day into the fade level that would be 6750 for me, right here. If we can fade the 6750, 6756, also that daily 50 SMA, that would be my new fading level after a pop and fade. Now, if we turn 6690, this low right here, into a rejection point today, right? You can see if we turn that 6690 into a rejection point today, which you can see it's trying to build back above right here. If you turn this into a failure, I'm thinking 6650. That's where I would be looking. And right now, you can see we are rejecting 6,700. So this is a very important spot. Do we hold 6,690, get above 6,700, or do we reject 6,700, get back below 6,690? Looks like it's possible that you could just see a 6,700 failure right now. But that is what I would be looking for. If you stay under that 6,690 level, I think you're looking for this low right here, right? You have a nice clean low from Friday of last week. That S&P could be looking for a move back down to 6650. That is very much potential, in my opinion. So that would be, again, another big potential bounce spot, and I would be careful of shorting into that. So a short under 6690 would be a 40-point short into 6650, 6655, and then I would be careful of this bouncing similar to like it did back then. So careful over there. Okay? Under 6650, if we do break that low, then you are trading down to the daily 100 at 6590, right down here. If you break this low, I don't see anything holding this up until I'd say the daily 100 SMA. So that is a big spot. So right now, 6690, 6700, break below 6690 into 6650, under that into 6600 and the daily 100. Those are the spots that I'd be watching. Okay, it looks like you just got a rejection. Yeah, big rejection, 6,700. Look at this. So that is going to be, this is the spot to start the day. This is the spot to start the day, 6690.75. And look at that 6690 hold. So here's your battle right now. Here's your battle. You break below 6690, you might get more right now in the pre-market. This is your battle zone. What are we doing on the NQ? NQ is right at the 709. So you can see it held here. After failing here, does it reject right here? If you reject this right now, you might actually get some juice here as we speak on this live stream. 709, fail that, you're going lower. Looks like you're about to do it. Okay. So that's the spot to watch. Keep an eye on that area. Let's jump over to the SPY and the QQQ. So the SPY on the S&P 500. We are down into some big lows here, for sure. Like, big enough lows to where a pre-market gap down would concern me for some type of a relief, right? That's just like the type of morning it is. You have a big gap down into some major lows. I would be cautious of the relief bounce before just shorting into a hole. That's just that type of morning for me. You can see we have these major lows here around 663, 665. And we have this major low here at 661. So this area right here is probably going to be littered with some potential bounce spots. I would be careful within that area. So 665 to 661, I know that's a big zone, but there really is some big lows that took place all inside this area. And I would be careful. If I zoom out even more, you're going to see it. You can see all this consolidation, all this mess right here, low, 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 and here is where you're at right now. So that's a little bit of a spot that I would say, all right, maybe a little bit of relief bounce. Let me not short into this hole right here where this got ripped straight back to the upside. Let me now look for that bounce to come in and then refade that. I think refading at the 673, 675 is the best fade. That is definitely the best trade. Will you stay patient for that? I can't answer that. But will this be the best fade if we get back up into there? Absolutely. You can already see that's where the best fade happened here in the overnight session, right? So if we can get another V shape here and then a refading entry here, that's really the money trade right there. That's what I would be personally looking for. So we'll see. Might be something before that, right? Maybe the daily 50 fades, maybe some of this 668, these lows right here. But to me, the best trade and probably the trade you want to wait for and not mess up your Friday, mess up your week by shorting into this low, it's probably up here, man. Just, looking at the charts, that probably is the spot. So I would prefer to wait for that. It might be tough to be patient for that, but that, to me, looks like the right one. So we'll see. Daily 50, definitely something to keep eyes on, though, right? See if the daily 50 does show any rejections today. That could be possible. But I just am not a huge fan of shorting into where this previously bounced very aggressively right into this low. So you can see this area, this is not just some sort of short-term area, right? This is the major 4-hour highs here, major highs here. So a pop into that level would be just a money rejection at that point. So that's what I would be watching. Okay? It looks like the NASDAQ did end up just getting a random pop off that 709. Yeah, look at that. So this 709 area, this is huge right now. This is huge right now. This is that 4-hour low. This is where you're battling right here. Okay. QQQ. QQQ in between a pretty big area here. Let me show you. Hourly chart. Look at where you're sitting on the Qs. Look at this low. Look at this low. Major double bottom lows right here, right here. So huge double bottom lows right there on the QQQ. 598.67 to 600. Also a nice clean psychological level. 598.67 to the 600 level. That is where you can see we had the previous major lows. If you look at this 5-minute chart, right back here, this exact low from Friday of last week was a bounce off of this exact zone. So what does that make me cautious of? That makes me cautious of a morning pop, right? A morning relief bounce after a gap down, maybe gap to get filled. 598.67 would be the area I would be careful of to the downside. If we do fail under that level, then I think you can get more downside right here. Under 598.67, I think you can trade the 590. That is very possible. Back down to 590 is a possibility if you break this 4-hour low right here. So underneath 598.67 into 590, that is a possibility. That's if you break this 4-hour low. Let's go ahead and get that gap level because we have to, let's put a level, let's make sure we have a level at the Q's close from yesterday. So the Q's close is 608.40. So that would be our gap fill level. So if we do get a relief bounce today, the gap fill level, and I'm going to take these off because these are no longer needed. Those were just the great gap fill levels from yesterday. 608.40 would be your gap fill level. So that could be your re-entry short. A little gap fill rejection could be a watch. If we do hold this 4-hour low, this major low, gap fill, rejection, possibility, something to watch. Just, you got to be slightly cautious today of the fact that we're gap down into demand. I'm just going to reiterate that, continue to reiterate that. That really is a very important point to remember. SPY gap fill would be right here, 672.04. So really 672 would be your gap fill. The overnight gap down, that would be where it's filled at 672.04. So that's right. Yeah, I mean, that's right where you sort of rejected this morning. So that's a big spot. Looks like we're staying weak here. So not much of a bounce off these lows yet. All right. Let's go into, what do we want to go into? Let's go into gold, because gold is a little concerning this morning. Gold is not, it's no longer, I would have expected gold to be strong during this, like we've seen. We're not seeing that, right? Gold is now weak again with market weakness, which is, typically we saw that that it was not correlated, but now here we go. Gold is correlated to the downside. So that's a little bit of concern. I don't think that I would want to be longing gold if I see that happening. Right now, you are into a major retest. You are right into our 40, 60, 40, 80, which was that major potential demand spot, which you can see was here. And you are right back into it very aggressively this morning. So, I would have expected maybe a strong morning for gold with this market downside, but this is not the case. This is a full market downside move. This is every asset class downside move. So that's pretty interesting. I would watch that 40-80, 40-60 zone, but, got to see it start to find strength with the market weakness, or that's going to be a problem. I would wait to see if it finds that inverse correlation before taking anything long on gold, because right now it's failing with it. So that's something to watch. IWM, big downside. I think IWM is going to trade back down into this area right here. 231. These highs, these lows on the daily, that's my target on the IWM. Right here, 100 SMA could hold it. 231, I think, is the target. You are at the 100 SMA right now as we speak, and it looks like you're just going to come to that daily low right now. So that is something to watch. It looks like the NASDAQ did just break. I'm watching it over here on my TradeAvate account. It looks like the NASDAQ did break back under 709. So, yeah, this level starting to break down. That level is not it's not holding true. It's not holding true. There you go. All right. So that's that. Let's go into SMH. The SMH right here. We are down into the 332.40, 336 area. You can see these lows here, these lows here, these lows here, and these lows here. So this is a big spot for SMH. I'm thinking this 332 low is going to be very important. Again, I would anticipate a bounce out of this level. Just technically speaking, that is what I would expect. But hey, if today is just sort of meltdown territory, then we'll have to think differently. But for now, you are trading back into some major daily lows here. Major daily lows. And that daily 50 SMA. So I am a little bit cautious of that being a little bit of a bounce spot this morning right in here. We have seen previous bounces there, and that's really all I can go off of. So right in here, right in here, big spots. If you break under that 332, then I think you might see that 325 and maybe even that 317. But again, what's the best fade for me today? The best fade for me is this pop fade. All right, that's for sure going to be the best trade to look for right here. Pop fade. That's what I would want to look for before reshorting into this hole. But maybe it's just sort of a bleed out today and definitely can continue. So look for the lows to break and look for the retest rejection, right? That's sort of my mindset today. It's either new lows to break or retest rejection. So on the NASDAQ, like I said, it's either these lows to break for downside or bounce, retest, rejection. Those are the two thought processes this morning, and you can see it might just be lows to break, right? ES, look at that 6,700 rejection on the money. Jeez. Okay, so let's adjust this. 6,700 is now a very major failure point. So that is definitely important to change here. 6,700 failure point. Big spot. Right there. So now we're going to look for the 6,650 or the pop and fade at 6,700 for an entry point. So either here or if this reclaims, maybe you get back into here, right? It's either fading here or fading here. Look for the failures here or look for if this reclaims, it's going to go higher and then fade back up here. So those are the two spots that I'm going to be watching. All right. Let's go into, I'm not going to say it, but I love, I hate this word, but I'm going to say it even though I hate it. Told you. We mess around with the group on that. Told you. Here you go, man. Here it is. I mean, there it is. That is exactly what we have been talking about. That exact move. A little bit upset I didn't catch it. But I hope that I was able to help someone catch it. I hope I was able to give someone the thought on that trade. Beautiful. Absolutely perfect. Weekly chart. We've been talking about this sort of frothy weekly candle, how we need to come back down into these lows or into these highs, and there you go. Beautiful, man. Spot on stuff. Love to see it. Really nice opportunity. Plenty of opportunity on Tesla yesterday. So good. So good. So today, I'm not going to be the first one to look for this area to long. I'll tell you that. I mean, I will definitely not be the first person in line for this long. But it is technically a very interesting spot, right? This is a very interesting pullback. Very. So let's see how it develops. Let's be vultures, right? The key here is to be a vulture. Let's fly above, right? How do you make a bird? These birds? Yeah, sure. We'll just make that a bird. That's a bird right there. We'll fly above, watch as the battle ensues, right? Monitor who's winning and who's losing. And then once we see that bull side starting to potentially win, right? I think this is a very interesting spot. It would be a very contrarian look, but technically that is the pullback level that you have been waiting for. So, I don't know. We shall see, right? That's the beauty of the stock market is let's wait and see. We're not forced to buy this. But I would definitely watch it. Somewhere in this area, this pullback on the weekly chart and that daily 100 SMA. That's the spot to be looking. So let's see. I would probably expect Tesla to be very, very weak today, right? Again, probably going to look like death potentially. Probably not the day to be buying it into a weekend. But if we start to see some demand stepping up here around the 373, 360, if we see that daily 100 hold, I will be monitoring price action. Put it that way. Daily chart. I want to have these highs marked out. I want to have these lows marked out. 396, 402. This area, potentially interesting. If we do reclaim some of those daily lows, potentially interesting there for the recovery. That's sort of right here where this rejected this morning. All right, so if you do get back above that, sort of interesting for the recovery move off of that demand low. So, yeah, just watching. Let's see what happens. Damn, GC still going. Nice job, Tanya. Boom. Things getting torched. Okay. So, that's that. That is that. Let's jump into Nvidia. I am probably going to not trade Nvidia for some time. I just really don't enjoy the price action on Nvidia lately. And you do have earnings approaching on the 17th, so that's in 3 days. So probably no trades for me on Nvidia. The only thing I will tell you is that this is interesting. This is the one thing that I would be watching on Nvidia. I would put some decent money on the fact, and maybe I will look to maybe, I'd like to believe my analysis, but I also don't want to get trapped in any of these lows over here. But I would say there's a pretty high likelihood that you are going to trade back to this weekly high at some point in the future. All right, similar to what we talked about on Tesla. All right, you have these weekly highs, and you're going to trade back to those. If you look at Nvidia, there is an extremely clear weekly high right here, and it's exactly at the 150 level. When I look at this chart, the one thing that I see is this: back to this level, retest, break, retest, and then maybe some opportunity on Nvidia again. So when I look at this chart and I see some of the weakness stepping into the market, that is sort of where my mind's at, right? Back down to this 150, back down to that weekly high, back down to that 200 SMA. I think that's a possibility. It's not that far off. It wouldn't surprise me at all to get another, 13 to 14% downside on Nvidia. I think that is very possible if the market is in a full sort of tech reset mode. Now, of course, earnings next week will obviously drastically affect that. If the earnings are stellar, then Nvidia is not going back down to here. But, that's the spot I'd be watching. This would be a big pickup for me. Definitely some shares, definitely some opportunity at 150 for me if we get to that level on Nvidia. Okay. Nothing for me on the intraday though. Not an interesting intraday for me. AMD, a little bit more interesting for intraday action, and let me talk to you about why. These highs right here at 244.50, and then you can see we have failed below that. So this is interesting for me today. Can we stay under this triple top high? If we can turn this rejection into if we can turn this level into a rejection, I'm liking an AMD back down to this 223, 227. And if I go to the daily chart, that's a little interesting, huh? So if we drag a little trend from these lows here, let's just drag the bottom side of the trend. So if you break in the future here, 223, 227, if you get something like this, right, that is going to be a very, 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 very opportunistic spot on AMD. Very opportunistic spot. So I would be absolutely watching that today. Can we get that? Can we get that move? Big spot to be paying attention to. 244.56, 223, 228. Breaking underneath that level gives me a trade to the downside. Okay? So keeping eyes on that today. Probably not going to happen right away. Right? You can see today that uptrend sort of comes in right here. But I would be stalking this. If this rejects here today, I would look for a fade into this level. And if this fade is strong enough to get through here, it's possibly money time. So keep an eye on this, right? This is some frothy stuff here still. MU. Very strong name. Won't be the first one to fade it. You're definitely in some demand here. Right in here. 226, 232. Right? Big lows. Big area here. Right there. Not my favorite watch today, but under that daily 20 could get interesting. My favorite watch for the semis is AMD. Nvidia's AMD is definitely an A+ to me. Watching this closely. Okay. Let's jump into some other equities. Oh, TSM's also a good watch for me today. TSM is down at major demand here, 270. And I would be paying attention to see what that does. Because under 270, it gets pretty light. You can see right here, 270. Under 270, it gets pretty damn light. What is that gap? Why do I have that there? Yeah, that's not right. Let me change that. I would say back to here. 248. Yeah. So take a look at this weekly. So underneath 270, you got this weekly pivot right here, and you likely will retest that, right? This is how the market works again. This is just, when the market wants to go into some downside, it starts to find these previous highs. So previous high, breakout, retest, long. Previous high, breakout. We have not retested this high. Can we do it? That would be a very structured move, by the way. Let me reiterate that. That is not a bearish thing to do. That is a structured stock market movement. So if you come back to these highs, I think that's very structured. That is just a retest of these previous rejection points. Bam, pullback, new long. All right. So I want to look to see if that happens because that's where a big opportunity may arise. And I think the downside underneath 270 is actually quite interesting back to that 250 spot. The only thing you have that 100 SMA here, which could be a problem, but I would watch to see what happens at 270. Yesterday, we talked about the Google gap fill. That happened pretty much off the open, which was just crazy. for me, Google underneath 267 is extremely intriguing. So right here on Google, you can see we actually have another gap to fill, which is actually under, maybe I give it 265. Yeah, maybe I give it 265. Let me see here. I mean, under 265, you're going to get your gap fill. So that's pretty clear. I do think that under these lows, though, at 267.17, you'll probably continue to see weakness. So I would say 265, definitely a spot to watch. If you break under this I think this is how I had it originally. I still like that. 267.17 to 272 is demand right in here. So if you hold here, you will bounce. If you break under this 267 low, I think you're going to trade right through this area, right back to 258. So this is opportunistic right here to me. And that is why I will set an alert right below that level. So that's a big watch for me. Amazon's a mess, even though it's just filling the gap, but it's just a mess. I don't know what it's going to do in here. I'm not really a fan of this, but you are filling the gap. The gap fill is down at 223. Can it continue? Yes. However, I am cautious of these previous highs just popping this thing back higher. So 233, 228, and the full gap fill is 222. You can look for the gap fill on Amazon. Apple somehow holding up in this market. Oh, it finally broke. Okay. Yeah, Apple was holding this 272 before I started the live stream, but now you are breaking below it. Under 272, I think you might actually get some juice. So I would watch 272 on Apple today. I am going to stop until we get 1,000 likes. So if you guys could, please press that like button. Subscribe to the channel. I am going to take a moment and ask you to press the like button. Pretty please. What are we doing down here? Just doing nothing. Yes, 66.90. Nice rejection. Press the like button, please. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. All right, there we go. We got 1,000. All I have to do is ask. 272, Apple. Meta, death to Ming. Death to Ming. 603 is a major weekly low. Take a look at this. Major weekly low, 603. 602.95 right there. Look at that. If you break that, which you are right now, aggressively, I think you might be coming down to here. 544. 603. And you have tanked below that this morning. Right? You tried to hold it here. You tried to hold it here. You have failed it. So I would look to see a pop and fade at 603 today. That is actually one of my top watches. Palantir, major spot alert. Look at this. Previous major highs, huge lows, right at it. 161. I have 161.27. That's this low right here. If you break below that, I mean, you are trading back within this channel, and if the market is weak, you're going to navigate to the bottom side of it. So that is 148. So under 161 to 148, I think there's some opportunity through this channel right here. That is a alert set for me below that level today. Hood, torched. Big break under the daily 100 here today. Next demand is 110, and guess what's under 110? You have a gap to fill. Under 110, right here. Under that, you got a gap to fill to this close at 101. So what I would be looking for today is a pop and fade. Hopefully we get the pop before it just goes to gap. Pop, 100 SMA, fade, gap fill. I would love to see if we can get a fade at that 118 and that daily 100. If not, this just is going to go straight to 110. Under that, you might get that gap to fill. So create an alert under 110 today. OKLO. We called the top on OKLO, man. Thank God I sold these shares. Yeah, this thing's still zero revenue stock going down. What do you know? 97. These highs, these lows. Look at the break this morning, under 97. If you turn 97 in the 100 SMA right here into a rejection point today, that is a fantastic looking trade. So if I can see pop fade 97, that would be a great watch. Pop fade 97. Daily 100, pop fade 97. That's what I'm looking for. 85. Why is the market going down so much? Vinny, you got to zoom out, man, right? Like, here is your, this is your weekly chart on the NASDAQ, okay? This is at some point, you got to pull back. Look at Google. Google, this is not normal, guys, okay? We need to know this. We talked about this. I talked about this with MU, and I got, I got some comments in the live stream saying, "Oh no, MU is a really strong stock." Guys, yes, right? MU is a strong stock. Google's a strong stock. These are all great stocks. They're making trillions of dollars, right? Billions and trillions of dollars. These are fantastic stocks. You can't look like this on a weekly chart. You can't. This is not normal. You can't look like this. This is not a stock market, okay? This is not normal. So it will pull back. It do go down. Trust me, it do go down, right? This is normal stuff. This is what the stock market does. The sooner you recognize that and understand that you can't go up forever and a downside move on the market is normal, right? You will stop panicking. You cannot go straight up. MU cannot go straight up on a weekly chart. Look at the monthly chart. I mean, the monthly chart probably looks ridiculous. I mean, there's your monthly chart on MU. You are up on the monthly chart since April of this year, 317%. Okay? That is not normal. That is 6 months. 7, 8. So, right? This is fine. Just play the downside. Look for the stocks that have gone up too much and look to see where there's low volume areas below and take advantage of the pullback time, right? I mean, like OKLO, this is not normal. This went straight up here. It's pulling back to this level, 85. This is great. This is opportunity. So what I'm going to look for today is back to that 85. Can we short underneath that 97 into 85? Let's see. CRWV. Oh, my goodness gracious. We caught a piece of it. I'm happy about that. We did catch a piece yesterday. But boy, oh boy, CRWV. This thing is, this is one that's not fine, okay? There's a difference for me. This one I don't feel so comfortable about. I wouldn't be buying this dip. Now, when, Google goes back down to maybe 258 or Nvidia goes back down to this 150 spot, then I'd be interested in buying the dip. Guys, if you're asking me when to buy the dip, base it off technicals, right? If you're going to buy a dip on Nvidia, why not buy it at this retest right here? Right? If you're like, hey, I want some Nvidia shares, let me check out the longer term time frames and see where that might be a good spot. I'd say 150 looks pretty good for some dip buying. Maybe it goes lower, but that's a great spot to start. So, CRWV is probably not one I'll be buying the dip on because this does not look very good. Underneath these lows, 84.40, right? Under 84.40, we were talking about downside. Under 76.08, which is this weekly low right here, 76.08 under this weekly low, you're going to go right here to 64. So take a look at 76.08 this morning. Look at this. Rejecting right now. If you stay under that weekly low at 76.08, you're going right here to 64 today. So CRWV, I am definitely watching that. Coinbase rejecting a major spot, and cryptocurrency, Bitcoin has fallen under 100,000. This is, we talked about this rejection up here. It is super clean. Look at this. Bam. Bam. So, again, I mean, this uptrend, we talked about this uptrend. It's going to get tested today. I think you're probably, I think you could see this. I think you could see these lows right here. This looks to be the right spot. Here, here, here. That looks pretty nice. That would be a spot, again, that you could look to pick up some Bitcoin, right? That'd be a nice spot. IBIT, right here, you're going to test that 40, maybe that 42 spot here on IBIT. If you fail this uptrend, right? That's a big test. And so what I would be looking for today, Coinbase has fallen below this weekly high at 277. So look at Coinbase under 277 today. This is a big break. Right here, you can see Coinbase is now trading under these rejections and under the daily 200. Next level of support is 252. Under that, it is 231. And under 231, you have a gap to fill, right? Look at this. Underneath 231, you have a gap to fill right here on Coinbase, back down to 214. Not sure that's in the cards, but let's be watching it. Okay. Where's the NASDAQ at? Yeah, we are just staying under that 709. So today the pop and fade could be, let's reiterate, let's reassess here for a second. The pop and fade could be, let me get into UNH in a second. I mean, this is now your fade spot. If it stays below. If you stay below 709, I would look for that to fade. If you get back over 709, I am not a fan of a fade today. I would be very aware of the market sweeping these lows and then reclaiming them and going higher. I would be very careful here today. This, I would not want to be short if this low is holding. Right there. If that low shows any type of support today, I would not want to be short. Okay? Like just for today. There might be a new short at higher levels. But down here, I would not want to be short if this holds. That is the same as 66.90. Look, actually not quite 66. Yeah, 66.90 is here. And then also you have to know you are back towards the 66.50. Again, I would reiterate, as weak as everything looks, the pop and fade in a downside market is always the best trade. It's the same thing as in an upside market. If the market's going up, what's the best trade? Pull back longs. If the market's going down, what's the best trade? Pop and fade, right? Not let me short into a gap down. So be careful at these lows this morning, guys. Let me do the giveaway real quick. So make sure you have your, make sure you are, where's my Gmail? I'm looking at like all my different screens to try to find it. Let's do the giveaway. Attendance form. Responses. Filter. This week. Oh, let's do UNH real quick. UNH. Yeah, UNH still above that key demand, and I still think it's pretty good above that. So I would say just chilling on this one. 316 would be the big, this is sort of the big spot for me. That 100 SMA. I like that 100 SMA. That's really where I'd like to just be watching UNH. Can it stay above that 100 SMA? That's really the key for me. Big picture. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to close my eyes. Let me load in everyone's names first. Let me filter to the name. There we go. It's a lot of responses. But it's only for this week. Should be. Let me make sure. The 10th. And that's it. All right. Here we go. Closing my eyes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There. Rich Lanza. All right, Rich. You're the winner. Rich Lanza. I will shoot you an email, Rich Lanza. Winner of the merchandise giveaway. Rich Lanza. Congratulations. All right. All right, guys. Have a great day. Good luck out there. Press that like button. Subscribe to the channel. This is your almost final day to sign up for our registration for the Sunday prep, Monday live trading, Tuesday live trading on YouTube. It's free. All you got to do is go to the description down below, sign up for it. It's going to be a good time. We're going to prepare. We're going to trade live. We're going to have fun. We're going to do giveaways. We're going to do Black Friday. We're going to have just a great time. MicroStrategy for Margin. All right, Margin. MicroStrategy. Let's see it. Yeah, dead. No, I'm just kidding. Underneath this high, 200. Yeah, that's pretty nasty. Next weekly high, 183. Next weekly high, 174. So, yeah, under 200. No bueno, Margin. I would say watch for that under 200 for sure. Under 200. All right, guys. Sign up below. Free registration. And I will see you on Sunday. Peace and love.